Hello and welcome to Murder Dictionary Podcast. My name is Brianna and over there is Courtney.
Hello.
So before we get started, we always want to remind you that in our description and show notes, we have links to a few different things. If you're interested in the story that we have tonight and you want to read some more, we've got some links to our resources for...
Buckle up, because Metro is bringing you the best deal in wireless. Switch to Metro and get your choice of 2 awesome free phones from top brands like Samsung and LG with huge HD screens and tons of memory for all your pics and videos. So hurry into Metro and get your awesome free phones only at Metro. Plus sales tax and activation fee. Requires port-in of eligible number not currently active on T-Mobile network or active on Metro in past 90 days. Limit 4 per account or household. Restrictions apply. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Research if you want to read some more, watch some videos, stuff like that. And we also have links to our social media. So if you want to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, follow us over there through the links. We're always having a lot of new information coming out, breaking news, new stories, new episode information, stuff like that. And a ton of memes. An overwhelming amount of memes.
There's so many good ones. And just tweets that people save and think, oh
yeah.
my God, people are so funny.
The last thing you're going to find in our description is links to our Threadless and our Patreon. So on Threadless, we have things like t-shirts and sweaters, phone cases, a bunch of big merch items like that.
Beach towels, duffel bags.
Mm-hmm. Tote bags.
The tote bags are cute. Reusable grocery bags is what they are.
So if you want some of those, if you want to be like Courtney and get your little Murder Dictionary sweater on.
I'm in like a little Murder Dictionary suit all the time.
You are. You're like,
yeah.
We may as well have onesies so that you can rock that shit constantly.
I'm on this. So tough.
So if you want some of those, check out our Threadless and the link is in our show notes. And the other thing is our Patreon. So if you want access to bonus episodes and some small merch items like stickers and magnets and stuff like that, we've got those on Patreon. So we've got a few new Patreon supporters this week and we wanted to say thank you to them. So thank you to Andrea, Taryn, Lorna Violet, and Shane.
Thank you.
So I think with all that said, we can move on to our case for tonight. So we are done with letter B. We're completely finished with bikers. And we're moving on to letter C for cannibals.
Cannibalism.
Yeah. And if you remember last week, I was totally just like, fuck bikers. I'm done. I want to move on. And then we got to cannibals and I'm like, going into it, this is a great idea. There's going to be so much. This will be interesting. There's some interesting cases. Like an hour into researching, I was like, oh my God, I'm so done with cannibals. It's
super
so
overwhelming.
Disgusting. I don't know. I still feel like, of course, we made the good call for letter C. Like at least it's interesting, but I'm already overwhelmed by the research.
Yeah, I think this was the second time because the first time was Wayne Calistine eating dog shit that I had like a physical reaction looking into this one. This was the second time where I just went, oh my God, this is really gross. I like, making faces alone on the couch, just gross.
It's visceral, just like
I usually
researching this.
Control myself, not to, this was icky.
So if you have a weak stomach like us, just,
I'm warning
be warned.
You.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I'm warning you people.
Enter at your own peril.
Yes.
So, cannibals. Let's get into it.
And there's a cannibal story in the news right now.
Yes.
About the guy.
Brand new. Straight out of South Africa, I think it was. Yes. Yeah. Where he just walked into a police station and said, literally, I'm tired of eating human meat.
And then threw a leg on the counter.
As though someone was forcing him.
Yeah.
He just carries it around like in his handbag, like chapstick, check, tissues, check, human leg, check. Like, I don't know what's going on there.
That's a hard one. I mean, it's your mind starts opening because you're like, whose leg is it? How long has he been eating it? How long has that person been dead? Where have you been eating this person that everyone's just okay with you eating this? Why are you so tired of it? Why is it so exasperating for you to be eating all this meat? Like
how much do you have to be doing to be tired?
Is this like the Joey Chestnut, Is there someone else? Where is your wife and or girlfriend? Do you have one? I got a lot of questions.
He's the Kobayashi of cannibalism, for sure.
100%.
Because he's exhausted.
He's tired of eating human meat.
It's really interesting because it sounded like there was more than one person involved in this.
Yeah.
At minimum, involved in the abduction of the victims. So I don't know. That story is going to be interesting. I think it's just going to trial now or something like that. I don't know.
I thought
we will
he
follow
just
up
showed
on
up
it.
at the police station, but
we may have updates next week because it seems like it's breaking.
We'll find out.
But today, we're actually going to be talking about someone else. We're going to be talking about Antron Singleton, a.k.a. Big Lurch, the rapper. So Antron Singleton was born on September 15th, 1976 in Fort Worth, Texas. But when he was young, he actually moved to East Dallas. And to hear him describe it, it was kind of a poor neighborhood. I don't really know too much about the Texas area, to be completely honest. But to him, it sounded like he grew up in poverty. And then
I'll take that.
Yeah, I would believe him. He's probably the authority on where he grew up.
Right.
From an very early age, Antron was extremely creative and really artistic. As young as age 7, he began writing poetry. And in 1990, around the age of 15, that hobby of writing poetry evolved into writing rap lyrics. When he started turning his poetry into lyrics, he also started performing and looking for really any opportunity to basically just get up and perform, get on a mic. As he says it, anytime there was a chance, he was there spitting.
Wanted to hone his craft.
So at first, he rapped under the name G Spade. But later, he would rename himself Big Lurch. The name Big Lurch came from the fact that Antron was extremely tall. He was actually 6'7".
Makes sense then.
Right? And I've seen it reported as 6'6" or 6'7", but I mean, I'm going to go with 6'7".
Yeah.
It just sounds huge.
I'm going to second that.
The story goes that he was at a friend's house one day when someone knocked on the door, and Antron answered the door. The person who was outside didn't know him, and when he saw how tall Antron was, he called him Lurch in reference to, of course, the character from the Addams Family.
That was so moving to him.
That he's like, I'm going to adopt this as my persona.
That's my new stage name, from G Spade.
Right.
Which kind of works. It's got the syllable thing, dun dun. It's got it.
But Big Lurch, it's no Big Lurch.
But you know what? He's also like 7 feet tall, so it's nice and, explanatory.
It makes sense. And also it seems like, as we'll learn later about him, he seems to always have had a little bit of interest in some spookiness and creepiness and maybe horror stuff. So Lurch kind of made sense with the Addams Family.
Oh, that's perfect.
So I think maybe this was the beginning of him being a little bit more involved in that kind of stuff.
How did this just click right now to me that the Addams Family, the archetypal gothic family, right?
Yeah.
And it's Big Lurch, and this is
And that's
horror
something
rap.
he's always been into. Yeah. Makes sense.
I'm here now.
Welcome.
What?
Welcome to the story of Big Lurch.
Yeah.
So he had some local success working with rappers in his area, but of course he realized that in order to make it big, he had to go to a bigger city with a lot more opportunity. It seems like the music industry in Texas was not thriving, especially with rap,
Not
honestly.
for his genre.
It may have been the wrong time. It may have been the wrong sort of genre for him to come up in that neighborhood, but it wasn't working, and he realized it. Antron's father had actually left him and his mother to live in California. So Antron used this as an opportunity to relocate since he already had family out there. He headed out west and he settled into the Bay Area, where he started performing and networking with other artists. And of course, this is a better fit as we know the Bay Area had a pretty big hip-hop scene at the time. He formed a group called the Cosmic Slop Shop with a couple of rappers that he met at a recording studio. And they even put out an album in 1998, but it really didn't get the success that, of course, he had hoped for. So eventually they went their separate ways.
He did a lot of features
Yes.
on other people's things.
So even though his group wasn't really that successful, he was doing a lot of guest spots and just doing a single verse on maybe slightly more successful rappers' songs.
He was probably his name probably was more well known and out there from doing features on so many other people's things than his own album.
Yeah, he was far more recognizable as a solo artist than actually as a group.
In the slop shop.
Yeah.
Cosmic.
In the Bay Area, Big Lurch was able to work with Mac Dre, E40, Too Short, and Brother Lin Chung. But he wasn't really able to attain the success that he was looking for. Even though, like we said, he was a guest, he wasn't really a star in its own right.
He was a peripheral character to a lot of pretty big movements, like Mac Dre and the Fizz Dance, all of these things. Too Short and, his pimpin' ways, all of it. But he was never... Somebody told me earlier, like, I just didn't like his flow, his style. I guess it was pretty different, so it's kind of you like him or you don't. Yeah. What I was kind of picking up.
Yeah, I feel like he was a little bit slower, maybe, than I like listening to. It sounded almost lazy in some songs, just... Like
it's also a different topic, usually.
There is that. Yeah, but I don't know. It wasn't for me.
It's a weird style. It is. It's either you are or you aren't.
Eventually, he came to the conclusion that if he really wanted to make it in the music industry, he had to move to LA. Big Lurch says that LA is where you work hard and you make your dreams happen.
Isn't that what everybody says, though?
It really seems like he was just that person that falls into that big, like, stars in the eyes kind of mentality. Like, if anyone can make it in LA, I'm going to make it, I'm
going to be a model.
Everyone comes here and tries to do that shit. Of course, we that live here are just like, nobody makes it in LA. It's the hardest place ever.
It's just...
it just tries to beat you down.
It's just 30K millionaires. Just fake it till you make it.
Definitely.
They live with their parents and their car is their parents.
Everything's on credit.
Multiple credit lines, by the way, which we don't know how they get.
Right? Like, how is anybody still giving you credit?
I don't know.
Also, how do you use credit to buy drugs?
This is a great question.
Does your dealer have a Square chip reader or what? Like, I don't understand it. But of course, once he was in LA, he did not become an overnight success. Surprise, surprise.
Shocking.
Yeah. He felt it was discouraging. He was totally discouraged by the fact that he didn't just show up and everybody rolled out the red carpet for him.
That's your first red flag that you're too sensitive for this industry.
Yes.
Or stay in the Bay and be the big fish in like this little pond. Because ultimately, this style that you're working on is going to become something. You could have been like an OG in that.
In the local area.
Yeah, in the local area, exactly. But he shot for the moon.
And I get why people do it, but the other half of me is just like, you can't be that disappointed if you don't just roll into town and become a star.
I give it to him for trying.
Yeah, because that's the thing. You miss, every opportunity that you don't take. You got to go for it.
Wayne Gretzky, Michael Scott. Absolutely.
As time went on and he just spent more time in LA, Big Lurch, of course, spent more and more of his time partying and getting high than actually working on a career in music.
Well, that's the LA way.
Right. And of course, it's under the guise of networking and meeting people and getting an opportunity to be on a mic. But really, when it comes down to it, you are just at parties all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Just
whatever your
time
motivation is. Yeah.
And I mean, usually it's like, I'm in this town. I don't know anyone. I don't know what I'm doing. And it's LA. So it's this big, exciting, let me go out and explore. And then you just end up fucked up all the time.
Right. And you realize that you don't really remember the last time you weren't going out every night.
Or worked on your craft.
Right. And sat and actually wrote poetry like you did when you were a kid. You lose sight of that artistic element, I think.
It's the asphalt jungle.
In 2000, Antron was actually driving home from his 24th birthday celebration when a drunk driver crashed into him. And he was severely injured in the crash. He suffered a broken neck, which actually kept him in the hospital for a really long time. While he was in the hospital, he was heavily medicated, and he says that he had to learn to walk again. He had trouble walking for a long time after the accident. When he was released, he continued to self-medicate with drugs, and he admits that he often got high to deal with his chronic pain resulting from the accident. Although Big Lurch never shied away from using any particular substance, his preferred drug of choice was PCP. The first thing I thought was that's not a painkiller. I can almost understand getting a Vicodin addiction after a car accident, but PCP, it seems a little crazy to me.
It's a hardcore addiction.
Yeah.
Or even, okay, not addiction. That's a hardcore, like, weekend warrior drug.
I know.
For real. If I'm like, oh, I'm off work at 5, I'm going to go get dusted at 7, and I will not know much of anything, including my physical self realm is just not with us. I'll be back Thursday.
It's insane to me. I don't understand. Like, PCP is the drug that I am literally most scared of. I have no problem with most substances, but PCP is terrifying to me.
I agree with you.
I've seen too many videos of crazy shit.
I completely agree with you. And I think that if you're going to do PCP, you got to plan for it. You got to make plans, like clear out any... See, the problem is you don't know what's going to freak you out.
Right.
So I'm like, clear out sharp objects, but it's like that coffee table could become something.
You never know.
Knows. The thing is, it makes you feel nothing.
Right.
So it's not a painkiller, but it has painkiller-like properties.
I think it just takes you out of reality, it almost feels like.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But the numbing quality is what the painkiller searching side of that is.
I guess.
It's common. I don't get that because when you're just like out of your fucking mind. I mean, Jenny tried to jump off the balcony in Forrest Gump so she could fly on angel dust. And that was just a movie. Like,
if we could learn anything from Forrest Gump,
it's hardcore shit.
So if you aren't familiar with the effects of angel dust, the high is hallucinogenic. It causes distorted perception of vision and sound and detachment from reality, as well as what we see is a lot of violent outbursts.
Completely common for people to set themselves on fire when they're on PCP.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen people will cut their bodies open. PCP users also experience the feeling of invincibility and an altered sense of self that often exhibits like superhero-like strength. You'll see the police talk about it. I mean, it really sounds like you cannot stop someone on PCP.
No.
Period.
They're probably so sore like the next day something too, though. They probably feel like they've been in a car accident because they're like just their muscles are oh my God.
Yeah, working so hard overtime, doing whatever crazy shit they're doing.
If you live through it, you're going to be sore.
Right.
That's the moral of the story. You think they closed the rings on their Apple Watch for their workout that day? I do. Got all their stands in? No, right? For sure, yeah.
So angel dust also causes extreme paranoia, hostility, and a lot of symptoms that doctors note are similar to schizophrenia.
I don't want to give myself schizophrenia
I
because I really don't think this sounds like fun.
No, it really doesn't.
I'm pretty open-minded with substances. And I'm just like, no, not so much with the PCP.
Yeah.
I sound like grandma, but I no, I'm good on this.
You don't sound like a grandma. Like I said, it's the one that scares me. I'm really open-minded about a lot of stuff. I'm cool with trying whatever, anybody else doing whatever. But when it comes to PCP, I'm like, maybe don't.
Yeah.
Just don't. Doesn't sound like a good idea, and it doesn't sound like fun.
It really doesn't.
Nobody's winning from PCP. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
So Big Lurch was on the opposite end of the spectrum.
Complete opposite.
A frequent user of PCP.
Very common in the Bay.
And you hear that reflected in a lot of people's lyrics too.
Oh yeah, Mac Dre's Thizzle Dance almost entirely. It's just variations of different drugs, but there's whole chunks of it that are just PCP related. Smoking Sherm. And I love the slang around it too. It's pretty good.
Yeah, PCP in that sense is referred to as wet cigarettes. And that's what Big Lurch loved. He loved getting dusted. So he was known as being pretty volatile and a bit unstable. Because even when you're sober, it seems like your mind is just different.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm it's one of those things where the more you do, it's like, it eats holes in your brain. But there's some sort of.
There's always science backing
the little
that
bit
up.
to this one. That it's not the greatest for your brain.
Yeah. This was also reflected in his writing. He often rapped about serial killers, horror characters, and other violent subjects. as well as using PCP just in general, like other Bay Area rappers.
Well, they were kind of on the bottom floor of horrorcore and all this business.
I'm sure that's how they talk about it. They're like, horrorcore and all this business.
Well, I can't remember what Brother Lynch Hung calls it. He calls it something else. It's like frame up, something like that.
Yeah. Antron's father says that he could tell that something was wrong with his son by this point. Antron started calling his father less and less, and when he did speak to him, he could hear that something was different in his voice.
He's been doing a lot of PCP.
Right. In hindsight, it seems, Antron was just partying way too hard and it was taking a toll on him, and his father could tell. But of course, Antron saw what he was doing as basically just networking, like I said. Even though it's escalated to PCP, he believed that in order to make it, he had to spend a lot of time just partying with people. So he was always out in the clubs, he was meeting new people, he was trying to find artists that were willing to collaborate with him, but kind of under the guise of getting high and drinking.
He was handing out a lot of mixtapes.
A lot.
A lot of that.
Big Lurch met Thomas Moore through mutual friends in the music business. When he came to LA to work on his album, his solo album, he began spending more time with Thomas. Thomas also did Angel Dust. And since it is a little bit more rare to find PCP users, especially in LA, Antron hung out with Thomas so they could get high together.
I don't personally know any like regular PCP users like currently this moment in my life.
In the LA area.
Yeah.
It's definitely
like in my 30s, not so much. Maybe earlier, but
maybe.
Now, not really.
Yeah. It's definitely, like you said, it's way more of a Bay Area thing.
So yeah, I'm going to find the only other PCP user I know who's probably got Bay Area ties, to be honest. It's so bizarre how it's just really pervasive in that area.
Antron eventually moved in with Thomas Moore and his girlfriend, Tynisha Ysais. 21-year-old Tynisha was nicknamed Pocahontas and described as very sweet and outgoing, really bubbly, smiley. That's what people always said about her. She had 2 young children, and she had aspirations of becoming a model. Her friends say she was known for her really wide smile and her ability to stay positive no matter what challenges came her way. One of the biggest issues in Tynisha's life at the time was her abusive relationship with Thomas Moore. Thomas was in a gang and had basically turned their home into a trap house. So Tynisha was ready to move on from the relationship, it sounds like.
I wonder how long they'd been together, because I don't think that making your home into a trap house is an overnight decision. Wait a second. We're on Drug Logic.
Yes.
I always want to put normal thoughts onto meth and crack and PCP logic, and it doesn't work. But I'm just wondering, like, how long have they been together that he's like, by the way, this is going to be a trap house now?
Yeah, I don't really know. I want to know
Throws the ball to her.
Yeah, that transition seems very crazy to me.
And she's thinking, maybe now I'll end it.
Yeah, it seems like things must have escalated at some point, but we really don't know how that transition kind of happened, because she had to have known. It's not like all of a sudden in the middle of their relationship, he changed into a different person and got involved in drugs and gangs. Like,
this is an abusive relationship, though, so she's probably just feels trapped.
Yes. So maybe she met him, liked him, and just once they were together, living together, it was just kind of feeling like she couldn't get out.
Trap house is just one more thing, but she doesn't feel like she can get out anyway, probably. Oh,
I know. On April 19th, Antron was with Thomas at their apartment in South LA, and they were getting dusted together. There's conflicting accounts as to whether Tynisha was in the house on the 19th or not. And also, beyond that, there's also conflicting reports as to whether she was smoking angel dust with them or not. And a lot of this is coming from Thomas. He's the one that's like, oh yeah, she was getting high with us. So I don't necessarily know if I fully believed that. I don't know. She doesn't
come across as the dust head the other two are.
Right. It just didn't seem like her thing.
No.
if it was in fact true, it doesn't seem like she was a frequent user like Thomas
Could have been
and
a
Antron.
weekend warrior thing, but I don't know.
Yeah, I just think it's worth pointing out that it's unclear.
Yes.
You know, and specifically why it's unclear is because he was the only one saying it. Antron says that on the 19th, the last thing he remembers is being at a trap house with a bunch of people who kept giving him more and more PCP. As he explains it in his own words, it sounds like an overwhelmingly, like a long time and a large amount. It just kept going. The next day, Antron showed up at Thomas's place in the afternoon, but Thomas wasn't there. Instead, Thomas's 21-year-old girlfriend, Tynisha Ysais, was the only one home. Thomas was out, and Tynisha's 2 young children were at school. She wasn't really expecting anyone when she heard the knock at the door, so she kind of opened it just a little crack to just see who was outside in the front of her house. She was startled to see Antron on her front porch with this really crazed look in his eyes. Antron doesn't remember being with Tynisha or having any sort of fight or animosity towards her at all.
That's what makes this even scarier.
Just completely a blank spot in his memory is what he recalls.
It's interesting because he has no beef with her, but he knows nothing at this point, right? He's all dusted out. So he doesn't have any problems with anybody. He's numb as fuck. But he knows enough that he knows the people in this house.
Right.
All he knows is I'm going to this place where I've been before, it seems like, and then she just happens to be here.
And it sounds like she opened the door and she knew him. He lived there. He spent time, sleeping on their couch or whatever.
Yeah.
But he was a different person when she opened that door.
So
Every
sad.
time she had seen him before, he was, different. His demeanor was completely changed this day. Antron says that the last thought that he had before he kind of blacked out was that he knew the world was going to end and he had to find the devil and kill the devil before the world ended. And that's the last thing that he remembers thinking. And that must have been the 19th, which now it's the 20th, and he's on Tynisha's doorstep.
That's insane to not have any memory of anything like for 2 days like that. And all you know is you've got to get Satan.
Yeah.
That's it. That's scary.
Yeah, I feel like doing PCP is dropping yourself in the middle of a horror movie, Like,
so,
everything's attacking you. You have to kill things. Things have to kill you. Like, it's just
survival
utter
of the fittest.
Yeah.
And it's the most horrifically violent survival. It's like caveman survival, like primitive memory.
Kill or be killed.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, Antron shows up. He's got this look in his eye. And it is that kill or be killed, I'm here to kill the devil look in his eye.
Yeah.
Which is just terrifying that she opened her door to this. And she could tell that something was wrong with Antron. So she tried to just slam the door on him. But he stopped it and he pushed his way into the house. Like we talked about, just this superhuman strength. It's insane. Antron hit her multiple times as she screamed for help. He broke Tynisha's jaw, her eye socket, and even her neck. When she stopped moving, he left her on the floor and he went to the kitchen. Antron grabbed a knife, which was a small, 3-inch paring knife.
Like a paring knife?
Yes. And then he returned and started stabbing Tynisha. After multiple thrusting stabs, he plunged it into her torso and then pulled the knife across to open up her stomach and chest. He reached inside the hole and he grabbed her right lung and then pulled it out of her body.
Oh, this one's hard. Oh, I can't even talk.
It's visceral. It's a nightmare. I can't even believe this woman went through this.
I hope she was already dead.
I know.
Before the stabbing, because he broke her neck. So
yeah,
hopefully, because
my heart breaks for her. It's terrible. And again, like we've talked about before, we always think of the children. She's got 2 young children. She's 21 years old. That's just devastating. Once he had this lung pulled out of her body, he started eating it while it was still warm and just dripping with blood while he chewed it. He continued to stab her a few more times until the knife blade actually broke off in her shoulder bone. Yeah. Antron also began chewing on various parts of her face, which left these deep wounds and teeth marks. He then took off all his clothes and walked out the front door of the house.
It's another PCP calling card.
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very common to remove all your clothes when you're on PCP. It is the telltale sign of someone who's dusted. A neighbor named Elisa Allen looked out her window to see Antron walking down the street naked with blood dripping down his mouth to his chest and his stomach. Elisa called 911 and told them that a naked and bloody man was running down the street and looking towards the sky. After she hung up, Elisa went to her friend Tynisha's place upstairs from her. When she walked in, Elisa discovered Tynisha's mutilated body with her chest just wide open and her internal organs exposed.
Crazy coincidence that the girl that sees him and everything recognizes it, puts this all together, and then runs up and finds her maybe like 10 minutes after he's walked out the door.
Yeah, I wanted to know more information and I couldn't find it, but I'm wondering, did she know that this was the house to go to where sometimes people get dusted, or was it just like, hey, this crazy shit happened, let me go tell my neighbor about this crazy shit I just saw?
I read that she knew that the guy that she just saw outside covered in blood had been hanging out and had stayed with them and things before. So she sees him down there all tripped out, covered in blood, and she knows that that her girl Tynisha is the only one up there right now. So she runs up there just kind of hunching like, hey, let me check because the only other person he knows than me is them. And he's covered in blood right now. So let me check this out. And
that's
then he goes,
interesting. I didn't see that. That's crazy. Yeah, that's, oh my God, that's even more terrifying. She just immediately puts it together, I bet. Wow.
There's such a visual of all of it that this one really grosses me out.
Yeah.
I just feel so icky. I keep swallowing.
I know. It's a tough one. I feel so bad. Police arrived to find Antron in the Watts area, barking like a dog and pulling his hair out. Officers apprehended Antron as he growled at them like an animal. And there's some pictures out there of him when he was just apprehended, and they're pretty gnarly. You can see it's just a person who's lost their entire humanity.
It's a blank stare. Blank canvas and just covered blood all over his chest.
So Antron was taken to a hospital to be treated and examined. Testing revealed that Antron had human blood and flesh in his stomach. Further investigation matched that DNA to Tynisha Ysais.
What test is this exactly?
I thought about this so long and hard, and I couldn't find anything because I'm like, wait, anytime I hear stomach contents tested, it's always someone who's already deceased. How do they do this?
Is this an ipecac where they just force you to throw up?
That's what I was thinking.
That's all I could think of. Unless they like put a glove to their elbow and they open your mouth like a cartoon and just reach down. That's all I thought of. It's either like... I know.
It's got to be a cartoon or something
They make
crazy.
You puke, or it's like a Beavis and Butthead sketch.
Yeah. I thought of the same thing. I don't understand. But what I was thinking is they walk into this crime scene. They've got, a victim who clearly looks like there's teeth marks everywhere. Her organs, her face. They've got to think this bloody man's got a match to this. So whatever testing or measures that they take... Yes. This has got to be the person they perform that test on. I don't know what that looks like, but they've got to put 2 and 2 together, right?
Very Sherlock Holmes of them.
Right? Oh, wait, teeth marks, bloody dude.
So insane that there's just teeth marks.
I know.
To go off of in this.
Ugh.
Ugh.
When questioned, Tynisha's boyfriend Thomas Moore said that Tynisha had also used PCP with Antron the day before the murder. And PCP was indeed found in Tynisha's system. But the thing was, the levels were so high that it's speculated that it may have actually been ingested orally instead of smoked, which seems suspicious, like as though someone poured it down her throat.
Maybe she never lit the bong herself, if you will. Right?
Yeah.
She smoked weed, but someone always lit it for her. So then she's by herself with our friend Lurch, and he's like, yeah, let's do some dust. And he's just like, all right, I'll do it right there. She doesn't really know how to do it. Is this a possibility? It's just like really naive drug use, and she just sticks it in her mouth, even though she's always watched other people smoke it. I don't know. I'm just kind of like, it's a weird thing to me that somebody who's like a regular PCP user suddenly forgets one day and just tries to swallow.
That's another thing to me that says that she wasn't a regular user.
Same here.
It just contradicts what Thomas seems to be saying.
I agree.
I think, either there was some sort of foul play or someone that was doing something to her, or maybe this happened in the course of the murder. Like, let me just dump this on this victim. I don't know. But I don't think this is something that a regular PCP user would have these kind of levels in their system.
No.
There's a few things about this crime that are actually kind of strange and suspicious. I mean, in addition to the cannibalism and PCP.
Sure.
It was also strange that although the apartment that the crime was committed in was known to be a trap house, like we said, there were no drugs or weapons found during a search of the premises.
This makes me think about Thomas Moore's role in this and
Yes.
why he's so wanting to say, oh, she's smoking PCP, this and that, all this stuff is like, he's probably more worried about getting a drug charge.
Right.
And so it does have a little bit of a ring to a cleanup situation.
Yes.
And why does he care so much about everything else and all of this unless he's involved somehow? And it might just be the minuscule thing that like, okay, we've got a person who's been eaten. We don't really care about your drugs right now. But to him, he's like, I don't want to get caught with anything. Maybe it's that simple.
It's just, it has to be mentioned because it seems too suspicious to not,
I agree.
Just like, oh, suddenly I've turned over a new leaf before the day before the murder.
No.
That definitely didn't happen.
Didn't.
This was something that got cleaned up after the fact. So it doesn't look right.
Yeah.
Like I said, Antron says that he does not remember anything from the time he smoked PCP the day before the murder all the way up until the point where he woke up in jail. Tynisha's mother, Carolyn Stinson, said that she was not allowed to see her daughter's body after the murder. But Carolyn had a cousin that was working at the coroner's office who she asked for information. Her cousin told her that she definitely should not push to see the body because the injuries were even more severe than she was being told. And it seems like the officers were trying to be a little bit sensitive and polite about the situation.
I tend to agree with that. I don't think that they wanted her to see her daughter in that state.
Yeah.
Maybe she feels like they were keeping her away from it. I understand that. But also there is the flip side of we wanted to keep you away from it. How do you go on?
Yeah, you can't really unsee that. And they were probably trying to protect her to some degree. It's one thing to know about it. It's another thing to just live the rest of your life having seen that happen to your daughter.
Same time, there's also moms who would never stop.
Right.
And would just let me see. This is related to my child. I want everything, detail. I need to see it for myself. I won't stop until I do. She sounds kind of like one of those moms, which
yes.
I'm familiar with. And she's not going to stop. So everything's going to have like a little spin on it. Like they kept me from it. They kept me from it. They didn't want me to see her. Like, maybe they didn't want you to see her, but it's not nefarious.
Yeah, I don't think there was like necessarily something like foul play involved with the police officers. I just think that it was a simple like, yeah, you don't want to see this.
I think they were all in
want
shock.
to see this. Yeah, exactly.
Completely.
And plenty of them, I'm sure, had children of their own that are like,
Yes.
if I was in your situation, there's no way I would want to see that. But of course, like you said, she's a mom. She
Yeah.
wants to keep pushing. So she asks her cousin for information, which, you know, I think a lot of moms would do.
Until the story makes sense, she won't stop trying to make sense of it.
Yes, you have to wrap your head around what happened to your daughter. I totally get it. But yeah, once she was given that information, she definitely backed off and was like, yeah, I think maybe you're right. I don't want to see her. Antron tried to plead insanity, but in California, I did not know this, defendants are prohibited from using the insanity plea when a crime is committed while voluntarily ingesting drugs.
I didn't know that either. I think it makes sense, though.
Totally makes sense, but I just had no idea this was part of the law.
It's interesting these things are written in.
Yeah. And of course, you think about like, okay, how many people had to eat someone on PCP before this law came into effect is what I think.
Several.
God, it's crazy.
I guess.
At a pretrial hearing, the judge found Antron to be sane and fit to stand trial. Antron hired a defense attorney named Milton Grimes, who also happened to be the owner of Antron's record label, Black Market Records.
Are you serious?
Very serious.
This is just strip market attorney or strip mall attorney shit. Yes. I just love it.
I don't know. There's something about that that's just like, really? That's the guy you want to defend you?
Yeah.
Like, I don't think you can necessarily be that great at both. You get what I'm saying?
Oh, I get what you're saying. 100%. And what does The Office look like? Is it mostly music or is it mostly legal? Or is one wall gold records that you made yourself? Or is one, you know, diplomas that you made yourself? I'm not really sure. I want to see it though. I doubt he's still doing both.
No way.
Milton Grimes.
During opening statements, Antron's attorney said, quote, PCP affects the brain to where people go back to their primal state. You can do the acts of a beast because you don't have the conscience of a human being. And that's where this man was when he took this woman's life. I feel like it's very eloquently put, but I still wouldn't want him to represent me in any case.
No, me neither.
During his trial, the defense tried to prove that Antron had diminished responsibility because he had been under the influence of PCP at the time of the murder. So even though they couldn't go through with this insanity plea or that kind of argument, he's trying to get a little bit of compassion for the fact that he wasn't in his right mind.
He has to say repeatedly, he's not in his right mind because he cracked someone's chest open and pulled out their lung and ate it. So he can't be in his right mind, right? Because if he is, that is the scariest thing I've ever heard.
Right. And the jury's going to look at him like a monster.
Yeah, you're not winning your case. Eek.
A psychiatrist confirmed that Big Lurch had significant mental impairment resulting from his drug addiction and habitual PCP usage. The jury returned a guilty verdict after only an hour of deliberation. And to hear Big Lurch describe it, he's like, it was a lunch break. It seems like it was so quick that they came back with a guilty verdict.
I don't feel like it would necessarily be that hard.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be impartial, I guess, and say, oh, it should have taken longer.
Yeah, I feel like there was so many suspicious things around this case that I'll get into it, but it just seems like, okay, it would take a little bit longer to deliberate, but people seem to most likely, like any normal person would be super hung up on the fact that he had Tynisha's body in his stomach.
Oh, you mean that? Yeah.
Just that little fact
might sway someone.
Yeah. So I think that it would be really hard to be, level-headed about it when there's something so insane like that happening.
Yeah.
You would just be like, yeah, guilty, guilty, guilty. So it doesn't, it's not really surprising that they didn't take long. He was convicted of aggravated mayhem, torture, and first-degree murder. On November 7th, 2003, Antron was sentenced to life in prison without the chance of parole, and he was only 26 years old at the time. Tynisha's mother, Carolyn Stinson, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Big Lurch and his record company. Her attorneys claimed that his record label had, quote, provided Antron Singleton with drugs to encourage him to act out in an extreme violent manner so as to make him more marketable as a rap artist. Because part of what makes gangsta rap artists marketable is the fact that the artist is a participant in violent activities.
It's a great argument.
It really is. And
good argument.
I just, again, it's like this mom is just fighting.
Yeah.
Like, I need justice here.
She's not going to stop.
But later, Carolyn would say that she believes Antron is innocent. And she believes that her boyfriend, Thomas Moore, either murdered Tynisha himself or set her up to be murdered by fellow gang members. So at some point since the crime has happened, she's changed her tune quite a bit. Carolyn and Big Lurch insist that Thomas and his friends intentionally got him extremely high on PCP so they could frame him for Tynisha's murder. Tynisha's mother also said that her daughter had been so severely brutalized that she believes the murder had to be done by someone that truly hated her. And she doesn't think that Big Lurch hated Tynisha enough to commit such a severe crime.
Okay, so what they believe is it was a setup. The gang beat her up, threw him along, and he starts eating on it since he was high on Sherm. Does this make sense?
I see her argument as far as motive in the sense that something so brutal should typically, what we see is that it happens from someone that is a partner or someone that is an enemy or something, not someone that's just a friend staying at the house. I see what she's getting at. But like you said, you can't apply normal logic to a PCP situation. This is not the normal situation where we see, partner violence. It's not. This is a situation where there's a lot of drugs involved. And even if Thomas Moore himself was involved, there was also PCP there. Yes. I don't think that this is just that cut and dry. It's really just a crazy situation.
So PCP is also like super frenetic energy. And so it's to me, like, let's say Thomas came up, killed her, she's dead on the floor, and then leaves or something, right? Cleans up, leaves her dead body there. So now Big Lurch, high as fuck, shows up and there's a body on the ground. If that body is not alive, I don't think a PCP user is going to be all into it because PCP is more physical, violent. It's energy. I just don't, maybe if you're like curious about it, but it's about like the fight, the struggle, like these outbursts they have. It's not against like a lamppost. It's something that can fight back.
Yeah, I don't see it as being that passive.
No, I don't see him walking in and being like, oh shit, let me, crack this open. Like, I really think that it starts with the fight. He's build up. And then now I'm getting crazy as fuck because my energy levels, just my adrenaline, everything.
Yeah.
I just don't see it being as calm.
There's a lot that just doesn't make sense, but it's PCP.
Wait, it does make sense. She's in his stomach. I gotta come back again and again.
It's just that simple, really.
I feel like that's your guilty verdict right there.
It's as simple as the jury saw it.
Yeah. And in less than an hour.
Carolyn goes on to explain that Thomas was abusive to Tynisha and that Tynisha had begun packing and was planning to leave when the murder took place. Seemingly like maybe there was an altercation because she was leaving.
Yeah,
I don't know. I
hear what she's saying.
I get it. Yeah, I
100%.
see why she would want to make sense of this.
Yeah.
Or I see why someone would want to believe that maybe something as simple as that happened that has an explanation over the fact that there's no explanation for a PCP crazed person to eat your daughter. Like it may be easier for her to wrap her mind around that. I don't know.
Maybe. I'm still upset with both of you, but continue.
Tynisha's mother, Carolyn Stinson, is not the only person who believes that Antron is innocent. There was a Free Big Lurch campaign, but I looked into it and it seems that the webpage has disappeared and become inactive since then. But after he was convicted, it seemed like there was a lot of people fighting for him. And as the years have gone on, it seems that there's even more people proclaiming that he's innocent on Reddit.
I went to Reddit, as I do daily, and I searched this myself. This is where I found the fantastic video of Brother Lynch Hung explaining his thoughts on this whole thing. And I didn't really find too much of, people fighting for justice for Big Lurch.
But at minimum saying he's innocent.
You could see the footprints of where it had been there for sure.
His supporters say that he was convicted on merely circumstantial evidence instead of forensics.
Huh? Wait, what?
Stomach contents. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, thanks.
There was also a children's scooter at the scene that was matched to a blunt force trauma wound on the back of Tynisha's head. But a bloody handprint from the scooter did not match Antron.
That's weird.
So, there's a few things here. It is also said that DNA was found at the scene that did not match Antron or Tynisha, as well as footprints, which didn't match Antron. His supporters theorize that Antron may have just stumbled upon the body, like you said, and mistaken it for something edible in his dusted state.
Just laying on the ground, as you do.
And again, it's like, I can't really put myself into the mindset of what it would be like to be on PCP and find a body. Like, I don't know if that's something that would happen. I don't know.
I just don't see it being calm.
Yeah, there's just a lot here I don't know. So they say also that possibly her boyfriend, Thomas More, orchestrated the whole thing by getting Antron completely obliterated on PCP and feeding him pieces of Tynisha's body to implicate him in the murder. That's the one I believe less.
That seems like a real long reach.
One of the things that stands out to me is, like we said, the trap house was completely cleaned up. So maybe that's where the DNA and the footprints come from.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah.
Kind of.
But it doesn't necessarily point to anyone else being the murderer.
No. Stomach contents.
Yeah. As it stands, Antron Singleton's conviction remains, and it seems he will spend the rest of his life in prison. Big Lurch is currently in prison in California and spends most of his time reading about music, business, or, of course, the Bible. Antron has repeatedly spent a huge portion of his time behind bars in solitary confinement, which makes me wonder if he's still extremely defiant and violent or anything like that.
Without drugs.
And what percentage of that is just being in a crazy situation versus long-term habitual PCP effects. He still gives interviews, and he has appeared on TV shows via calling in from prison phone. That's the story of Big Lurch.
It's just, stomach contents. Sorry. That's going to be a hard one for anyone or me to overcome in my own brain.
Yeah, I can't really look past it. It just doesn't really... It seems like there's things that are suspicious, but not enough forensics to say that someone else was rustling around in her internal organs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no. There's enough to argue that there was some sort of cleanup situation or somebody came in, moved some shit around and was like, oh, fuck, this is a bad situation, and just ran out, And then...
Yeah.
Fuck. It's crazy. This whole thing is nuts.
It makes sense that Thomas More would be like, oh shit, my name is on this lease. I got to get all the drugs and guns out of here. And then there's his forensics left behind. Also that they just live there together. So there's other DNA there. There's other people coming in and out. It makes sense that other DNA would be there. But footprints and that kind of stuff, I really think that's Thomas More. And again, we've said these things before. It's like, well, Thomas More is still out on the streets.
He's living.
Thomas More is somewhere.
Yeah.
And may or may not have participated in this to some degree.
Think he still smokes Sherm? You think he does?
Was this
I'm sure he
his
does.
Scared straight moment?
Nope.
No way.
This isn't it.
I don't believe it for a second.
It's interesting too because PCP, there's an element of satanic / demonic nature to it, and a lot of people say this, that drug counselors, scientists that study this shit say that PCP has this Satan, the devil, Jesus, and God, and good and bad, and the end times.
Yes.
Armageddon shit to it. There is a rapper, Houston, gouged out his own eyes after he had a failed suicide attempt because he was super high on PCP. He said he wanted to see his father in heaven and that he was Jesus. And now he's in a mental institution. But gouged out his own eyes. Another rapper, too, by the way. Like, huh? Mm-hmm. But it's a PCP. Satan is coming for you. And you got to flee him. The murderer's coming. It's like the highest paranoia.
And that's one of the reasons to me it makes so much sense that Big Lurch would attack Tynisha. I know that people are like, okay, could have been someone else. He may be innocent. But it's too violent of a drug. It's too severe of a like apocalyptic.
Yeah, apocalyptic is a great word.
So it's like, yeah, you're in a crazed state, think that the devil's going to get you and you have to kill him. I mean, you're not going to see the face of your friend Tynisha.
No.
You're going to see something that you have to destroy. So to me, it just adds up that it was him. No matter how many people tell me otherwise, I'm like, I don't know.
Stomach contents.
Yeah. So on that note, this is the end of our first Cannibal episode. I'm done.
It's overwhelming.
Yeah, it's been a lot. Like I said, I thought I was sick of bikers and all that sort of hatred, racism, homophobia. But then I dove into Cannibals and I'm like, oh, I'm already done with this. I can't take it.
You know what I found with bikers that was interesting with bikers in this whole topic was at the very end, and I'm sitting back and I'm going, you know what? We started getting crazy hater status on bikers because we're sitting there like, oh my God, these guys are such losers. And I realized I was like, oh my God, we're captivated by this hate. Like, I swear to God, it was from reading all of it. And like, these guys are assholes. It's like festered. And I find myself just going like, man, fuck these dudes. But I'm like, well, they're just people. But then I'm like, no, man, fuck these guys. And I found myself being like a severe hater for a minute there, trying not to hate, right? But they're just such haters themselves. It's like contagious.
Yeah, I mean, I reserve judgment when I'm in front of someone.
I don't know how you felt.
I mean? But like, I think that if you have enough instances of specifically not just regular bikers, not just your average weekend warrior, but of biker gangs, anyone involved in the outlaw biker community, having repeatedly over and over again histories of racism and hatred and homophobia and all these other things, I just have no time for that. And I'm not going to be a dick immediately seeing someone with a leather jacket with patches. I'm not. But I'm definitely going to be checking you for your swastika tattoos. That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely.
You know? Yeah. I have no time, no patience, nothing, no tolerance for people that just, perpetuate this hate culture.
I swear it was just the most ridiculous thing to me when I was just sitting back just like, I hate these guys. And I'm like, oh, wait, maybe I don't. Then I'm like, no, they've made me like hate them.
Yeah, you're like, am I part of the problem?
Yeah, it was interesting. And then I think I was just paranoid and smoked some weed. I was fine like after that. But I was just like, for a second.
I totally relate to that. Hearing the episodes back, I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Like, I really disliked these guys. Yeah. But I'm like, well.
But I really disliked these guys.
Genuine reasons for that. Yes. I didn't just randomly, arbitrarily hate these people. I had very strong feelings and reactions to the culture of hate that they were perpetuating.
Okay, good. I'm glad. That's all.
On that note, we want to say thank you to our Patreon supporters that are new this week. Andrea, Taryn, Lorna, Violet, Shane. So thanks you guys. Thanks again. We appreciate you supporting us on Patreon. If you want to find the links for those, you can find that in our description and show notes. And also there is our link to Threadless on there too. And I think I haven't mentioned in a very long time, if you leave us a review on iTunes, we would really appreciate it. Because I know a lot of times, people don't take that extra time to hit the stars and say something nice. But we really appreciate your positive feedback. It really means a lot. You have no idea. So if you feel so inclined, we would appreciate a review and some stars.
We love hearing from everyone.
I love it. Yeah, we get messages and voicemails this week. It's always exciting.
We learned some interesting things.
So on that note, we'll be back with another Cannibal next week. Oh,
sounds
joy.
Good.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Brianna.
And I'm Courtney.
from Crime Screen Podcast,
where every week we talk about movies, TV shows, and docuseries based on true crimes.
We discuss all the bingeable and unforgettable true crime that we're all watching on our screens at home.
Like Making a Murderer, Mommy Dead and Dearest, or Dear Zachary.
So if you're like us and have the problem of scaring off people at parties with serial killer facts and true crime stories,
or you just try to talk about whatever you watched and get horrified looks from coworkers and even your exasperated significant other,
then we are your new friends to discuss all the true crime with.
Follow Crime Screen Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to stay updated.
And subscribe to Crime Screen on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever else you listen to podcasts.
Buckle up, because Metro is bringing you the best deal in wireless. Switch to Metro and get your choice of 2 awesome free phones from top brands like Samsung and LG with huge HD screens and tons of memory for all your pics and videos. So hurry into Metro and get your awesome free phones only at Metro. Plus sales tax and activation fee. Requires port-in of eligible number not currently active on T-Mobile network or active on Metro in past 90 days. Limit 4 per account or household. Restrictions apply. See store for details and terms and conditions.
Hi, it's Jamie, Progressive number 2 employee. Leave a message at the... Hey, Jamie. It's me, Jamie. This is your daily pep talk. I know it's been rough going ever since people found out about your a cappella group, Mad Harmony, but you will bounce back. I mean, you're the guy always helping people find coverage options with the Name Your Price tool. It should be you giving me the pep talk. Now get out there, hit that high note, and take Mad Harmony all the way to nationals this year! Sorry, it's pitchy.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.